Hi MWF users, this is Hannah from Structsoft Solutions, bringing you this week's tech tip. Today's tech tip is about a topic that we get a lot of questions about. A lot of clients ask, can we use MWF to frame curved walls? The quick answer is actually, yes you can. However, there are some limitations and recommendations. Today's tech tip is entitled Tips on Using MWF for Curved Walls. Let's jump in. So I will be using ProSuite and will only focus on LGS for now. Today we are focusing on arcs or simple curves with only 1 point radius. I have added 2 arcs with 2 different radiuses and a straight wall just for comparison. You'll notice that this sample here is different, has a different radius from this sample, and this is just for comparison and for variety purposes. The first tip for today is breaking up the curve into a series of straight lines. This is really the #1 recommendation. I will show you 2 ways to do this. I will trace this curve, and yes, I'm talking about making a fake curve here. So I'm just going to pick a line. I used a model line, pick lines, and I just isolated that line. I will now create a wall, but I will be using inscribe polygon or circumscribe polygon. Both options will work. I'm going to locate the center point, and I'm going to use that curve, and then I'm going to decide on the number of sides that I need, and I will use that curve to place that polygon. Then we will need to delete any segments that we don't need. So this is the first option. The second option is to use AutoCAD. I'm just going to grab the AutoCAD that I have opened here in the background. And what I'm going to do, I will draw a curve, just a random curve with 1 point radius. And here, I'm going to divide this curve. So I'm going to type in div on my keyboard, select the curve, enter the number of segments that I want, enter. And if you don't see these points here, enter key type on your keyboard to change or modify the point type. So we have divided the curve into equal segments. I will trace a line on top of these dots to connect the dots. And I'm going to be deleting the curve. That's it. Now I'm going to save this file. And I'm going to insert it either by importing CAD or linking CAD could work too. There it is. And now I'm going to create a wall using the pick lines. And I'm going to trace over these lines, and it's going to create straight segments. But let's assume that you just have to frame that curve. Let's try and see how the software will behave and compare it to a straight line. Let's make a selection. I'm going to frame all these walls at the same time. Let's use Create. Pick a template. I'm going to use something out of the box. I'm just going to use light gauge for today. Set as active, close, and create. And OK. You'll notice that MWF will generate these panels. However, if I zoom in here, in comparison to the first straight wall, I'm just going to actually select the top or bottom tracks here and just show you what I mean. I'm just going to select them and isolate them. You'll notice that the top and bottom tracks will be curved. They're not going to be automatically broken up into straight members. Which brings us to tip number 2. Be mindful of your machine settings. Not all machines are compatible with curved roll forming. It's possible, but it depends on your machine. Let's do another test here. I will add a window or a door. I'm just going to add them to these 3 examples. And now I'm just going to regenerate. So you cannot use doors or windows in a curved wall, but it's going to work if it's just a straight wall. So let's try something else. I'm going to delete these. Let's try a wall opening. And let's regenerate. You'll notice that it worked better, which brings us to tip number 3. Use openings instead of doors and windows. However, we also have to talk about tip number 4, because this can be unpredictable. You'll notice here in this example, it didn't come out the way we wanted. So here, you may need to use edit tools. So tip number 4 is you may need to use edit tools to manually tweak the result. You can check out other tech tips on edit tools right after this one. Let's try something else. Let's talk about split tools. So the next test is to use split tool. In this example, you can see that I have placed a split marker here in a straight wall and here in the curved wall. It's a horizontally split marker. I have placed this manually. Let's go back to the 3D and let's hit create. Same template. You're going to get an error message that some panels could not be created. It's going to say that it cannot split arced walls. So this brings us to tip number 5. You cannot use MWF split tools with curved walls. What you would have to do is split the curved walls using Revit split tools. Let's jump into our last example. Not everything in the Properties menu is compatible with curved walls. I will show you an example of a template that I had pre-created. Here I have a straight wall, a curved wall, and I'm going to create a wall from the line segments that I had pre-created here. And I'm just going to use walls, and I'm going to just trace over them. And let's see the difference between these 3. I'm going to use a template that I had pre-created. Okay, so we have created multiple panels with different properties that we're going to talk about and analyze. Just let's click on create. Let's zoom in. In the straight wall sample, the software has behaved the way we expected it to. It has placed all these members properly with no problems. And now let's compare it to this sample here. This was the curved wall sample. Let's zoom in and talk about what happened here. We'll notice that it completely ignored the horizontals. It hasn't placed the anchor bolts in the manner that we expected it to. We also have a problem with the hold down. So this will need some manual adjusting. However, if we take a look at the sample that had the segments, we'll notice that the software has placed everything properly. The framing has been placed correctly because the walls were straight. And this concludes today's tech tip. I hope it helps. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.